Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Mythicist Milwaukee Show. I'm your host, Rob Moore. With me, as always, in the studio, Brian Edward. What's going on, Brian?
I'm doing good, and we have a special guest host.
He's Damian Jones. Say hi, Damian.
Hello, everybody.
And Eric Hildeman also joining us, host of the Sacred
Cow Worst House, thank you. The Sacred Cow Worst House, yes.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, Eric. Tonight we have a special guest, as we podcast is always from the Grand Avenue Mall, the Bucket Works location in beautiful downtown Milwaukee. Our guest tonight is the founder and current president of Black Nonbelievers, Inc. Black Nonbelievers is a nonprofit fellowship of nonbelievers headquartered in the Atlanta area that is dedicated to providing an informative, caring, festive, and family-friendly environment. And alliterative introduction there, Sean. Thanks for that, poetic guy. Black Nonbelievers strives to connect with African Americans who are living free of religion and irrational beliefs and might otherwise be shunned by family and friends. Instead of accepting dogma, they seek to determine truth and morality through reason and evidence. Black Nonbelievers welcomes everyone, regardless of sex, sexuality, gender, identity, age, national origin, or race. She was born and raised in New York City, but she's lived in Atlanta since 1998. Please welcome Mandisa Thomas. What's going on, Mandisa?
Hey, how are you?
Pretty good, pretty
Pleasure
good.
to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Is it sunny out still? Did they change the clocks?
Yes, and it's actually warmer than usual down here this time of year. I actually just came back from New York today, and I'm glad to be back in Atlanta,
I bet you are.
where it is warmer.
Yeah, it's warmer here too, and I meant 38 instead of 6. So.
And the winter was pretty brutal this year.
It was a little bit ugly for
I'm
everybody.
sure you guys are glad for this break.
Yeah, it looks like it'll stay now and melt away a little bit of this gray snow. So, where are you from in New York? New York City's a big place.
From Queens,
Right.
Jamaica, Queens.
Jamaica,
New
Queens.
York is yes, New York City is comprised of 5 boroughs,
Mm-hmm.
and I am from the borough of Queens.
Yeah, Jamaica, we know it well, or some of us do. I love it. Being from Connecticut myself, New York's close to my heart. But you are in Atlanta now, and you are the founder of Black Nonbelievers. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Tell us a little bit of the history there. When, what got it started? How long has that been going on?
Well, we were founded in January of 2011, so we just turned 4 years old this year. And we started it because part of it was due to my personal journey. I pretty much was raised a non-believer. And though I was exposed to religion, Christianity in particular, I was never formally raised or indoctrinated to believe in any religion. And so during the course of evaluating my life as well as my hate relationship pretty much with religion and seeing the hypocrisy of Christians growing up, or many Christians, I won't say all. In Atlanta in particularly, and then in the South, there is a huge preoccupation with folks going to church. One of the first questions that many people are asked is, what church do you go to? Not even, are you religious at all? Just that, what church do you go to?
Yeah.
So it's automatically assumed.
That you go to
So, yeah, and so as I was reevaluating my relationship with religion and non-belief, and being inspired by a few people, Jeremiah Kamara for one, who is the producer of the documentary Contradiction, as well as watching Religion Book by Bill Maher, and finding the Black Atheist group online, because prior to that, I just didn't really think about there being Black atheists online or just in general, or people who openly identify, which I thought was just awesome, because I remember at the age of 14, someone asked me, was I atheist? When I asked them what that meant, they told me they didn't believe in heaven or hell, so I pretty much said, yeah, that's true. But when I came to fast forwarding 20 years later, and just really reassessing and thinking about where I was and being exposed and inspired by a few people, I decided to re-identify as atheist. And then I realized that I wanted to find others like me. I wanted to find that networking and that sense of offline community. But I was advised that most of the groups and that most of the events are predominantly attended by white folks, and that there is that there is a sense of awkwardness and just a sense of obliviousness towards Black atheists. And at first, I didn't really believe it, but when I attended my first meetup in the Atlanta area, I understood what others were talking about. And my co-founder at the time, we were the only two Black people there, and we had a discussion, and we said, I said there are more out here. There are more of us out here. They may not know where to look or that we exist. So we decided to found Black Nonbelievers of Atlanta as it first started out, to try to bring more of us together, to build that community and to help draw out more Blacks who are non-believers or who are questioning religion because of the stranglehold that religion has on our community, and also to build that bridge and to show and to increase that diversity within the secular community, which was still very lacking at the time. It's getting better, but it's still lacking. It was lacking, and it's still lacking. But we wanted to we built that on a two-part purpose and mission. So from there, we just our first meeting that we had in February of 2011. There were 15 of us in attendance, and which I thought was a great number, because you still won't even find that many Black folks at a large convention. That was proof that there was a need for a specifically targeted group for a specific demographic. And again, while we are welcoming, like you said, like you mentioned in the intro, we are welcoming to everyone. In fact, we want everyone to know that they are welcome and included. We are very inclusive, but our primary premise really is to help bring out more non-believers of color and especially in the Black community, because there are still people who feel isolated. There are still people who are surrounded by religious family members and friends. There are still people who work in religious, they still have jobs where they interact with religion. We have been contacted by some folks who were groomed to be pastors. And there are people who work in religious environments, and they feel like they have no other outlet. And they've been conditioned to think that the church is the only place where you can find that sense of community and social networking, which really isn't true. And so we really try to defy that misconception, and we're trying to change the face and perception of the Black community, and also to show how diverse we are, and to show how diverse we've always been in our community, and to bring that to the forefront. As well as, again, working with the secular community to increase diversity, as well as to understand the issues that certain demographics face, like women, for example, and Hispanics, Asians, Blacks. There are other issues and concerns that we have in addition to just atheism. Atheism is just one part of it, but for most of us to openly identify as an atheist can be extremely challenging, if not almost like having a mark on you. And so there's a lot of work that we need to do there.
Wow. You weren't lying. You can really go. I love that you have the same perception and that a lot of us have, no matter what part of the country we're from or what our background is, that the Black atheist is rare, or at least the public Black atheist is rare. Is it harder for Blacks to come out because it's the culture is so engendered or so entrenched in religion?
I think it definitely makes it more challenging because of the role that the church has played in our community. And at one point we recognize and we acknowledge that the church really did have a important purpose in our community, because it did bring people together, and it was able to provide that sense of networking and community that was needed at a time where the law and this country as a whole was pretty brutal to Blacks, and the history in the United States definitely proves that. And so there was a time where it was an important role. It played an important part in our community. There were schools that were started, in churches. There were other social programs that were started as a part of, as a part of the church, and however, because of that, because of these things that we've been through, as blacks, there is such an emotional attachment to religion, and if it was the only thing that got us through hard times, which, if you study the history, that isn't true at all. And also, there were others. There were non-religious people who were concerned about what was taking place in this country, and recognized that human rights are inherent to all of us, and they were non-religious. So there's a part of that history that is lost, or that has been hijacked by the church, especially pertaining to the civil rights movement. And so part of our mission too is to make people aware and to inform that humanists and non-believers and freethinkers have always had a presence in the Black community, especially in being in this country. But because of the very, very dominant influence that it has on the community, it's almost like, if you are Black, if you identify as an atheist or someone who doesn't believe in God, it is like you are stripping yourself of your identity. It is held so strongly by so many people that they cannot separate the two. It is like, if you are Black, you absolutely must be religious in some way. And we're proof positive that isn't true. And again, the history tells that as well. But unfortunately, because so many still identify and still hold it so near and dear, there is still this perception that somehow not only are all Blacks Christian, but also that we must be Christian or religious as well. And this is something that causes a lot of strain on those who have done away with it, who said they don't believe anymore. It can be extremely difficult to talk about this with family members and friends, because there are a lot of people who are, financially and some ways, a lot of ways emotionally dependent on their religious family members and friends. And so it becomes a deal breaker for many people, which is heartbreaking, because it doesn't have to be. There is just a fundamental misunderstanding of what an atheist is, what atheism and non-belief entails. But again, so many people hold it so close that it's like you're just divorcing yourself, period, if you let go of it. And so that does become a huge barrier in our community.
Well, the need for what you're doing is self-evident, and we see the same thing here when we have our meetings. They look like old white boy clubs. There's no way around it, and I look like one of them, and maybe the oldest, whitest one. But you look around and one Black guy comes, and and the next week 2 Black guys come, and and everybody senses that elephant in the room. It's like we know that they're welcome. We want them to be welcome. We want them to feel welcome. But we also sympathize with the fact that they're going to want a community of like-minded individuals who come from the same kind of background, and everybody yearns for that. And in light of that, we have Damian Jones starting the local Black non-believers group, and he's eager to throw down in the conversation here. Go ahead, Damian.
First off, I just wanted to let everybody know, if you're listening right now, you can listening live on Mythicist Milwaukee website. You can click on the player that will take you to the Mixler page where you can join in on the chat. If you have any questions for Mandisa or anything in general, just you add it to the chat there. Also, follow the Mythicist Milwaukee show on Mixler, and you'll get updates when we go live. So, now a question for you, Mandisa. I was thinking about you're talking about that, Robin spoke to it as well, the idea of the elephant in the room being a few, being that one Black person or a couple of Black people in a secular group meeting. Now, I guess I'd be looking for what's your take on things that these leaders of these organizations can do to make it to kind of to make it a more welcoming atmosphere.
Okay. Yeah, there's a couple of having been active in this community for the past couple of years, there are a few thoughts that I have on that. It isn't a one part issue. There are a number of things that I have noticed and that I think can be done to help increase diversity, especially within the local groups. Part of that is for these leaders and organizers to understand that, there definitely needs to be a variety of events that you have that will be more attractive to to people from different backgrounds. I will say that there are just some people. Part of it is that some people still aren't aware that these groups exist. So that's part of that's part of the reason. Also, too, thinking about the demographics and some of the things that you talk about. Part of the reason that BN was formed wasn't just because we wanted to reach out to the Black community as well, or to other non-believers of color, but we also noticed that some of the meetups and the meetings that are held in some of these groups are, for lack of a better word, they're boring. For people who had an idea that all atheists do are worship the devil and such, they'd be pretty disappointed. There's a science and education, which of course we advocate, which is extremely, and we definitely push the informative aspect as well. However, some of the philosophers and people that are lauded in the community, especially amongst the predominantly white community, they have different meanings and have a different symbolism for many people of color. Like, for example, Thomas Jefferson. The community lauds him for being a champion for freedom from religion and the separation of church and state. However, people like Thomas Jefferson were slaveholders, and they certainly and there was and some of his descendants that from his children that he sired from a slave woman had to fight for their identity. So there is a different aspect that needs to be understood by the organizers and overall community, that some of the people that they hold near and dear won't necessarily be heroes to some others, and I think that can be acknowledged as well. That there does need to be a sense of care and concern as to why there is a lack of openly identified non-believers or atheists of color, because of and not just to necessarily say, well, I don't understand why all these Black people just don't believe anymore, why they still believe, especially when religion, where Christianity was used to oppress and to enslave, which is very true. But understanding the history of it, understanding why it happened and why it's such, and why it is still so prevalent is also important. There does need to be that sense of care and concern and empathy for why the Black community is still so highly religious, as well as why there are so very few openly identified non-believers of color. So showing that sense of being informed more than anything else is going to be important, and as well as imparting some new ways of outreach. One thing I've been saying over these past couple of years is that the secular community does need to work on its social skills. There are many people who are highly intelligent. They are very well educated, but when it comes to relating to people, there's a lot that is left to be desired. And so you're not going to reach your average individual by only speaking of by only speaking about science and education. That is one important aspect. However, just reaching people on just that basic human level of, hey, how are you? I mean, I not to be patronizing, but, to show that even though the secular community prides itself on being welcoming, aren't necessarily doing that. So imparting and reaching out to groups that you may not have necessarily thought to reach out to. You may have to go after some progressively religious institutions, or going out into a community that you may not have thought of before, and just showing your presence, even if you may get some backlash. It will happen, but just being more assertive in being open, and this is one of the reasons why I support the Openly Secular Project, because many people just don't understand because they don't know, and that's kind of taking me back a bit, but just being more open, being more inviting, not just waiting for people to come to you. That's something I've noticed as well about some of these other groups. They just think that people are just magically, and that just doesn't work. It didn't work for certain solutions when we were religious. It certainly isn't going to work as a part of being secular. So, reassessing how things are being done, what your demographic is currently, and if you are serious about increasing the diversity and reaching out to others, then looking at doing things differently, not just in the focus of the group, but just also in how you do things just generally, because that becomes an important aspect, and that's near and dear to my heart, because we can praise historical figures all day long. We can talk about issues that are current in the media and in the news and such, but just showing people that you care, and showing that you understand what they go through, no matter what their background is going to be extremely important. So I know that was kind of long. It's kind of it's like I said, it's not just a one part problem. There are quite a few things that definitely need to be addressed and resolved.
That's great advice, and you're talking to the right people. You're talking to the people who need to hear those kind of things. That's a great question, Damien, to extract that bit of info.
Yeah.
Brian's got something for you.
Yeah, I think you bring up, Mandisa, an excellent example with Thomas Jefferson. And I definitely get your point, but as far as like projecting this, would it make more sense to say, okay, one of the things Jefferson got right was separation of church and state. However, we can't look at Jefferson as the perfect man, because it just, doesn't make sense without the Martin Luther King ideology to really complete it. Otherwise, we've only made, half the country free or so. I mean, would that be a fair way to push it? To be inclusive, because I do get what you're saying, and I think Damien said it best when he said, when the leaders talk about their we, and you find yourself not in that we,
Right. Absolutely. Yes, I do think that is something that, and I would say, to answer your question first, yes, I think it is important that to acknowledge that the separation of church and state, that the founding fathers, as we know them, that was important, and it still is very important. There is a way. One thing I've said recently, there is a way to emotionally detach ourselves from the history and understand it for what it is, and understand what was accomplished in certain areas, but also acknowledging the flaws of said people. And yes, that was something that I did leave out, that there are and I did say this previously, that there are historical Black freethinkers and humanists that do tend to be overlooked, aside from Black History Month, within the secular community, and it has to go beyond that. And that's one thing I'm proud to say that at Black Nonbelievers we've been able to do, is to shatter that whole just only focusing on Black humanists and atheists and freethinkers outside of that month. This is something that is important to us 24/7, 365. And so it does become important for the larger community to acknowledge and recognize that recognize our heroes and also and we don't wait. I know one thing I've said is that I'm not waiting for the secular community to just recognize us. There is a responsibility that we have to show that we do exist. There are people. We do have authors in our community that people need to know about. There are people who are doing some really good things and especially in the name of secularism. And it becomes important to collaborate and for us to become part of the regular narrative and the scope of acknowledgement
Could you,
in the secular community.
I agree. Could you touch briefly on your, maybe your favorite, Black secular heroes, the ones you particularly enjoy?
Well, I will say definitely. I will say one person who is definitely an inspiration to me was, and I mentioned him before, is Jeremiah Kamara, who is the author of Holy Lockdown and The New Doubting Thomas, as well as the director of the film Contradiction. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it's been circulating for the past year, and he's done some really good work with that. I would say more of my heroes and more of the people I have come to love have been local. I will give a shout out to my homegirl Bria Crutchfield. Y'all may know her. If you don't, please look her up. She's over the Detroit chapter of Black Nonbelievers, and she also facilitates, and she's founded Minority Atheists of Michigan. And also Alex Jules, who's out of Texas. He was one of the first Black atheists featured in a major Black publication. He was featured in Ebony magazine in July of 2011. He's very, very active within the secular movement. He's over the diversity. He's a diversity chair of the Dallas-Fort Worth Coalition of Reason. He is active with the Fellowship of Free Thought in Dallas, as well as Black Nonbelievers of Dallas. He recently started a blog called The Graffiti Wall, and also he's involved with a project called Secular Avenue, which I think is a subsidiary. It's affiliated with Foundation Beyond Belief as well. So many of the people that are my heroes now are those who are actively working within this community and who have risked their families and who have put themselves in that line of fire, if you will, to openly identify as secular and being a Black atheist. So, and there are plenty others as well, but yeah, I would say those are my three right now, okay, who I very, very much look up to and admire what they do.
That's fantastic. Those are heroes of yours, but I think you'll agree they're not household names. And from our point of view, you're at least as famous as any of those guys. For what you're doing down there. Is part of the problem that there's not a really public, big scale Black star who's an atheist or kind of a leader of a secular movement who's African American?
Unfortunately, that is a problem, and I think that unfortunately we've conditioned ourselves to believe that there should be a star in our community, or that there should be someone who is certified, degreed up, that is looked at to be a savior. Unfortunately, we still have this savior's complex and savior's mentality when it comes to our community. And it seems like the overall secular community is guilty of this as well. There are many of us who are on the ground and who are very active and we participate. And for most of us who are organizers in this community, we know there is no money. There's no real money in this. So if you're trying to be a star in this community, I think that's probably a bad premise Because really, at the end of the day, I know that I got in this because I knew there were people that needed help. I know that, and there have been many people who have told me that that I have helped them, which I do appreciate. Also, to another person I'd like to acknowledge is Ayanna Watson, who was the president of Black Atheists of America. She was also very active before I was active. So she was one of the very few, especially women, Black atheists who were open. And so I think it's unfortunate that we do look for that either one star or this person to laud up to and hold to probably what is an unrealistic expectation and a very unrealistic standard, because we're all human beings at the end of the day. And I think that, it would be very, very bad for us to fall into this hero worship and idolization, similar to what the religious community does.
That's a good take on it, but I think
I think that would be a bad thing for us to do.
It would help for publicity, though, to have just a star. Like, there's plenty of white dudes from Richard Dawkins to.
You do have Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Well, I was just going to say,
is he that he's an atheist?
Well, I don't think he wants to make it about religion, but is he?
No, he doesn't identify openly as an atheist.
Yeah, and that's kind of an issue.
Yeah, I honestly would love for like Jay-Z to come out and say he's an atheist.
Now,
if you're familiar with his body of work, I don't know. But if you're familiar with, if you've ever listened to his music from when he debuted his Reasonable Doubt album in 1996, there have been quite a few songs where he's alluded to his, to him not being religious. And from his last album, he had a song where he said, "Question religion, question it all." And so there are many people, there are many of us in our community that are basically saying these things, but it's a matter of whether we are being recognized or people are looking for it. We are, and again, fame is at the end of the day is not our goal. But yeah, sure, if we're going to wait for that superstar Black atheist to just show their face, we'll be waiting for a while.
No,
so therefore, it will be. Sorry, it will be up to us to help promote each other and what we do. I just think that if we just can't wait on that.
No, certainly not.
Yeah.
Go, Damien.
Oh no, that I was going to also second that, the Jay-Z alluding to not being that religious. Yeah, included. I can't remember the name of the song offhand off of Magna Carta, but yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
The mythicists were reached out to by of all people, Killer Priest, and one of his people. Are you familiar with the mythicist position in particular, Mandisa? We may have covered this with Alan back in the day. Do you believe Jesus Christ existed in any form at all? What do you think about mythicism?
It's interesting. I've had, I don't necessarily get into the historical aspect of Jesus and whether he existed. I know many non-believers and atheists do, especially some Black atheists. I think the history of religion can be very fascinating, but my thing is there is no historical or tangible evidence that Jesus ever existed as a human or in any form. So therefore, I do very little to to go and to say, hey, to even debate it, because it doesn't, because there is no exact evidence of it. But I certainly can appreciate and acknowledge those who do who do engage and who do participate in the historical aspect of whether Jesus existed or not. I do maintain that yes, there were many Jesus-like characters in mythology, and so one cannot ignore the similarities between the Christian gods or the Christian version of Jesus and perhaps some older religions and some older characters in mythology that are very similar to Jesus. I think to research it and to be informed on that is very important. But I mean, as far as going into details with that, I admit that I don't necessarily do that. I like to I like to connect with folks who have less religion, and the support and social aspect is something that is very near and dear to me. However, I do understand and respect that aspect of it, and in fact, we do encourage people that if that is an area that is important to them to participate. There's something that we can all learn and take away from that.
You mentioned or I was thinking about the community, the aspect of religion and church that the people enjoy is that sense of gathering, and you see your friends on Sunday, and you join in the choir. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know one white person in the North that doesn't love a Southern Baptist church choir. I mean, it's in every movie because everybody loves that. Is there? And you can talk a little bit more about what the Black Nonbelievers are about.
Did you just get all sister act on us?
Yeah. Can I get an amen, please? But no, I wonder if that's a part of what needs to be replaced in order. Cause there's no need to lose gospel music in order to lose the supernatural. We can still enjoy those kind of traditions, as a lot of people do. We the atheists celebrate Christmas. We atheists celebrate different holidays. It's just not magical. It's not supernatural. It's not tied to religion, but it is tied to family tradition. Can you speak to the importance of getting people off the couch and not just joining an online community, but coming out and participating as an atheist?
Right. Well, let me just say that one thing that has been really become a source of irritation to me lately is this idea that our groups absolutely need to replace the church and that sense of community that they bring. We recognize that not everybody is going to leave the church, for one, and that there are, and like you said, and I agree, that there are aspects of the church that people can still enjoy while being a non-believer. Like there are many people who still enjoy gospel. There are many people who still enjoy participating in certain functions with those religious family members and friends. And I don't think that should be taken away from them. However, what we do provide and what we do like to show as a secular fellowship is that there are pretty much things you've been doing pretty much most of your life, or especially in our adult lives, that you didn't think about, that you've incorporated into your everyday life, with the exception that you probably just went to church, but you didn't think about it. There are plenty of activities that people can do without, and there are plenty of ways that community can be built without incorporating religion and without incorporating the church. Like for example, what we like to, in addition to our general meetings that we host, we like to go bowling. We like to go to the movies. We like to do things that are pretty much would be considered everyday activities or weekly activities that there are, and that I would say that many religious people actually miss out on because they're so involved with their churches that they don't realize that there is a part of life that they can enjoy. So when people say, well, what do you replace it with, or were you replacing that sense of, community in the church or what have you, there's so much that people don't realize that they miss out on because they were religion. I don't know if you would agree with this or not, but it has this sense of restriction about it, that you are just supposed to live your life for your God or what have you until the day you die. And so therefore, many people miss out on opportunities to enjoy their life. Like, for example, if somebody has never been on a cruise, I highly recommend going on one. It is a lot of fun. And there's also this idea that we must always give ourselves to service 24/7, which is something that I don't necessarily agree with. It is important for people to understand that they can do things on, at their own pace, and without the influence of any institution, whether it's a church or whether it is Black non-believers. But we show that people can have the opportunity to do that. And they've probably just been, they don't realize that they've been doing it all along, but there's always been that religious influence. And yes, we are people who pretty much like to do those same things. And also, but from a secular perspective and from a secular position, that you can get together, that you can do things with like-minded people without giving up your life, which is what is expected out of most religions and religious institutions. So I wouldn't want to replace that. There are some people who feel like they need that. Even if I don't agree with it, I understand it. But for those who are looking for like-minded individuals and who do want to fellowship and connect and don't always have to worry about that religious aspect, then that is why we are here.
You're listening to the Mythicist Milwaukee show. It's Mandisa Thomas from Atlanta. She's bringing the Black non-believers to Milwaukee with our local guy, Damian Jones, here coming up soon. We want to, of course, invite you to follow us on Mixlr. You can listen live, as you are, of course, at mythicismmilwaukee.com. We are at the free Future Lotus Network. And sponsoring on April 25th, the Myth Information Conference is Mythicist Milwaukee, along with sister groups, members of FAM. That's going to be on April 25th at the Riverfront Hotel in Milwaukee. Get your tickets now.
That's correct.
Check out the website to get your tickets early. You going to be coming up for that, Mandisa?
Unfortunately, I will not be able to attend. I wish you all the best of luck with that. I think it'll be very, very exciting. I'm sorry?
Oh, I said he's always selling.
Yeah, and I could totally take a lesson from that, because that is something that I'm very, I need to get better at. But my daughter and my husband are going to visit her college that same weekend, and so I have my boys who I'll be watching, and so we'll probably be doing some local stuff with being folks down here in Atlanta. And I'm very, very excited about the new Black non-believers of Milwaukee. We want to, expand our network as much as possible. And one thing another thing I will say is that we are very much about coalition building, participating with other groups. I think it is important for us to be aware of each other and to work together, even if we have slightly different missions and focuses. There is no reason why we can't work together on different projects and even interact with each other. There's a lot of good speakers, a lot of good information that many of the secular groups provide, and I don't dare denounce or diminish what they do, because there's a lot that we all can learn from it. However, I think that, again, being able to reach out to others who aren't necessarily within your circle, if you will, becomes important in order for that information to be further widespread. So we are very much about collaborating and coalition building. So, and one thing I've advised to Damian is to continue to work with the other groups, continue to participate in the local coalitions, because it will only make our community stronger.
Well said. And of course, the Free Thought Alliance Milwaukee will be sponsoring the Black Non-Believers debut sometime after April. That'll be the next event. The date hasn't been chosen, but we'll of course let everybody know what's going on with that when one is available.
And if we Damian is our leader president. I mean, if we want to get who would you contact to the Milwaukee chapter of Black Non-Believers? Would that be you, Damian? Yes, sir. All right. We can do an email plug here.
Oh yeah, you could just email me at Damian@futurelotus.com. Future Lotus, the producer of the Mythicist Milwaukee show, which I can't pronounce for some reason.
It's a tongue twister. That's Damien, Damian.
Yeah, at futurelotus.com.
At futurelotus.com.
Yep, if you're interested in, we have a website at blacknonbelieversmke.org.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a closed Facebook group, but more social networking things to come very soon.
It's time for a segment we like to call Myth of the Day. What do you got for us, Sean?
Well, today I want to piggyback on what you guys were talking about with Thomas Jefferson earlier, but this is a quote that we dug up, and the MM team, we dig up these nice little pieces of advice and wisdom to share it so people can understand the truth. Now, we think of the Founding Fathers as Christian, and this was a Christian nation. Well, this is another example of why that is not true. Thomas Jefferson writes, "The day will come when the mystical generation of Jesus, by the Supreme Being as his father, in the womb of a virgin, will be classed with the fable of the generation of Minerva and the brain of Jupiter." And that was actually written in a letter to John Adams on April 11th, 1823.
So Thomas Jefferson, on one of the things he got right, in our opinion, in our esteemed opinion, was that he recognized Jesus as being a pretty obvious allegorical figure. It's about 7:45 Central Time here, Central Daylight Time, getting on in the evening. What's immediately next for Mandisa? What's on the agenda in the immediate future?
Well, in the immediate future, there are a few local events that we're hosting. We are facilitators. We do partner with Recovering from Religion, and we do host and facilitate a Recovering from Religion meetup in the Atlanta area every second Saturday of the month. I will be the weekend after, March 21st, I will be in the Tampa area speaking with CFI Tampa Bay, myself and Richard Peacock, who is over the Black Nonbelievers of Metro Orlando group. We will be discussing African American humanists and our struggles and triumphs. The original title on the CFI Tampa Bay website it only says our struggles, and I just don't like to paint us as only having struggles, because there are many things now that we do have to celebrate and acknowledge in the positive. And so after that, I will be speaking at the American Atheist Convention in Memphis that Easter weekend, that first weekend in April. And we're also continuing to develop a project called New Turn, which is secular solutions for recidivism. This will be our one of our programs where we reach out to the community and try to help and offer pragmatic solutions as far as like training courses, mentoring, and support without that divine premise. So there's a lot we have going on there, and I'm very happy to be involved in it all. And it can be very tiresome sometimes, but it's worth it. And I'm very, very happy to be involved and to do what I do in this community.
Yeah, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. I know you had said you didn't get a specific date yet, but are you able to talk a little bit about the upcoming segment you have?
Yes, I will. Myself and a few members in the Atlanta area will be featured in an upcoming segment of CBS Sunday Morning, which is about being openly secular. We weren't the only ones interviewed for this project, but we were included in it, and I am excitedly waiting for the debut of this subject of this segment, because it is, for one, it is national exposure, but also, two, it really will give a good face to the different faces of atheism and non-belief, and it will also show the growth of the number of Black atheists who are now starting to openly identify, who are willing to share their experiences on camera. I remember a few years ago, when we were invited to participate in this a film student's documentary. It was almost like pulling teeth to get people to participate. But fast forwarding these past couple of years, with the number of support and that we've been able to provide, as well as the visibility, we have people now that almost can't wait to share their stories, and so that is something that I'm very, very proud of that we've been able to do. But the CBS Sunday Morning segment will feature not just me but also a few of our members, and they've captured us at one of our meetings, and hopefully we'll get to see that soon. As soon as I get the word, I will be sharing with everyone, and there will also be an online link to the segment after it airs. So we're very much looking forward to that. Again, we want people to know that we are here, that we do exist, that we are just as normal as anyone else, that there is nothing wrong with even if you don't openly identify as an atheist, even if you will never be an atheist. There is nothing wrong with with knowing what an atheist is, or even associating with one, or being good friends with one, or being married to one. So we very much look forward to that continued visibility, that continued exposure of and the attempt and the ability to normalize us. So again, very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, that sounds great. We look forward to seeing it. And one more quick question, and just kind of tying it all together. What would be one thing you could think of that would be good advice for any organization, or even for me with the Black Nonbelievers in Milwaukee? That would be one thing that you've heard from either your the main chapter or any of the other growing chapters that we could do to encourage people of color to at least participate in a meeting.
The most important thing that we can do is to be consistent. Consistency is very, very important. We have people who either out of anguish or excitement like to get involved, but after a while, once they realize how much work is involved, and they may not realize with other responsibilities how much work was involved, they either slip away, or they may step away. But it becomes important to stay and be consistent with what we're doing. It can be difficult at times. There may be times where you schedule a meeting. You may have about 15 people who may RSVP, and you may only have 2 people show up. Don't get discouraged. It can be very difficult at times, but consistency and dedication is key here. It's as an organizer and as someone who is good at who prides myself on execution, if you will. It becomes important to and continue to follow up with people. I know that one of the things that I always say is that I know is something that I don't say often, and that's one of the main reasons why we've been able to get so much accomplished. Was that usually if I am asked something, I respond quickly, and that has been consistent coming from me. Is that I make sure that if there is any communication, that I try to be as as responsive as possible, and continuing to follow up as much as possible. There's nothing magical, or like I said, nothing magical, or nothing really nothing too revealing that we have to do. Is basically doing those everyday things, or putting a routine into practice. And so remaining consistent, remaining dedicated, and remaining vigilant is very, very important.
Well said, and that's the perfect ending. We're going to let you go. It's 7:53. We'll wrap it up here. It's been Mandisa Thomas. She's coming out in the summer. We'll let you know when. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you then.
Thank you once again for having me. It was a pleasure to be here.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
Mandisa.
Okay. Bye-bye.
This has been the Mythicist Milwaukee Show. Everybody join us next week when we have Todd Steifel from the Steifel Free Thought Foundation. That's Todd Steifel from the Steifel Free Thought Foundation. That's next week, 7 o'clock. On the Mythicist Milwaukee Show,
Do you do French,
futurelowes.com.
Do you French? Other
French, whatever you like, you know. I did the French accent if you like.
Argentinian?
Oui, Argentinian. Ciao, ciao, my friend.
I think that was still French.
Ciao's Italian, but the Argentinians say it. Good night, everybody. Ciao. Ciao, bella.